Coach Prime is in the middle of overhauling his roster, which has always been the plan, according to him, from right when he got there and to the interviews he is doing right now. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about who is Shedeur Sanders going to throw to, from the tight ends, from the wide receivers, to the running backs out of the backfield, right? I want to take a few minutes and talk about who he's going to throw to, who he can potentially throw to, especially with all this roster overhaul and roster uncertainty after the spring game. But before we dive into who he's going to throw to, let's take a few minutes and look at what Dion has had to say, or Coach Prime has had to say, since the overhaul of the roster, since the spring game has ended, right? So he has been on record and has been talking to people after the game, and here's a quote from Coach Prime himself. He says, "I'm not just making this stuff up as we go. We know what we want, and I don't concede. I don't settle. I know what I want. I know what I'm going to get." That was Sanders talking to Pat McAfee on the Pat McAfee show of the players he plans on bringing in to build the roster. Since Sanders has been named the head coach, there have been 45 players enter the portal as of now. I think 28 or 27 around that have entered since the spring game, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. The players that are entering, I think they're going to get in quality players, and a lot of the players that are entering, even though they did some good things at Colorado, Sanders is probably just looking for a different type of people or different type of athlete. But last quote we'll talk about from Sanders before we talk about who Shedeur Sanders is going to throw it to. Here's Coach Prime. A lot of people talk about they want to go to the pros, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get to the next level. I want those people who are willing to do what it takes to get to this level. We already know what we've got coming in. Y'all just don't know. There's no way I could put new furniture in this beautiful home if we don't clean out the old furniture. So clearly this was a plan from the start, even though it's news to people and it's kind of shocking, admittedly, with this many people entering the transfer portal all at once. I think it was all part of the plan. So with that said, we've put out several videos of Shedeur Sanders talking about what he brings to the table, his steps as a quarterback, how he fits into the new offensive system from OC Sean Lewis, and we think he's going to fit in really well. And if you're interested in any of those videos, please go back to our old videos and check out the film breakdowns that we've done. And if you're new here, we do a ton of quarterback content every week, from videos like this to film breakdowns to quarterback interviews. So if you like quarterbacks or just college football in general, please consider subscribing, liking the video, all that YouTube stuff. So let's dive into who Shedeur Sanders is going to throw to. And as you see, we have some Sanders highlights on the screen from some of the videos that we've broken down that we'll be playing as we are talking. So number one, of course, Travis Hunter, right? No surprise here. The top overall prospect in 2022 class who has transferred over, that had a great year for Jackson State last year, playing mainly DB, but getting some plays and getting some time at the receiver position. Had 4 touchdowns receiving last year. I think he's probably going to see a bigger role in this offense, if I had to guess, for the simple fact just the receiver depth is something they're still building, and he's that good of an athlete, that good of a talent. So I think Travis Hunter is going to be one of the main guys you see Sanders get the ball to. It might not be every series, it might not even be every quarter, but I do see him being more involved. I think he had like a buck 90 yards receiving last year, right around. So I would envision him having more than that. Even though he's seen as a DB, I still think he's going to get a lot of time at the receiver position, and it would not surprise me if he even doubled that number he had last year at Jackson State, for the simple fact I think he's going to be needed, right? And I think there are going to be a lot of options for Hunter. I even think some running backs out of the backfield are going to be able to get the balls thrown to them, just for the simple fact Sean Lewis's offense is kind of, it's kind of set that way. And one guy could be Cavazier Smoke from Kentucky, the transfer, right? He had 5.42 yards per carry in 46 games at Kentucky, which ranks seventh of all time in Wildcat history. And he's someone who I think can have some potential and can help Sanders get comfortable if you need a check down throw, or even if you need to get the run game going to get the passing game set up. So I do think there's a role for Smoke, whether he's catching the ball or just having a positive impact on the offense. Let's look at a few of the transfers that Shedeur Sanders could be throwing to. They got a tight end from Arkansas State. I'm going to butcher the name. Shedeur Troyer, excuse me. Again, from Arkansas State. He was a four-star transfer, first-team All-Sun Belt, and he led Arkansas State with 50 catches and 655 yards and 4 touchdowns this past year. So you put in the tight end in this type of RPO type scheme, a quick moving scheme. I think the tight end can have a lot of catches here. It can help take pressure off the run game, pressure off the receivers, and get the tight end involved. I think he can be a stud in this offense and can really take some pressure off of Shedeur Sanders. So again, I can't pronounce the name, I apologize, but the Arkansas State transfer. Let's look at 3 more receivers that have transferred already or have committed transfer. 2 from USF, Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn Jr. Xavier Weaver had 53 catches this past year, 718 yards receiving, and 6 touchdowns this past season, right? It is one of the best receiving totals in USF program history. And so I think Xavier Weaver is definitely someone Sanders is going to be able to rely on, to throw to, and he's going to fit the offensive system well at Colorado. And then someone else you may have heard of, again, a USF transfer, Jimmy Horn Jr. He was one of the fastest players in Colorado during the winter testing, according to Buff Stampede, which is where I'm getting a lot of this info from, so I'll link it in the description below. But he went a 4.38 40. He was the first Buff member to earn his number this year. He had 959 yards receiving in 2 seasons at USF, and also was a first-team All-AAC honor. He got first-team AC honors as a kick returner in 2022. So I think he's someone who can really stretch the field, someone that can really take the top off the defense if needed, and that Sanders will be able to push the ball downfield to Jimmy Horn Jr., right? He's someone else that Sanders is going to be throwing to. And then, of course, you got Willie Gaines, who played at Jackson State and played with Sanders, had 27 catches last year, 446 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He brings speed, and he's also someone who is shifty as well and can be attributing on special teams. But again, I think these transfer portal receivers are all going to get valuable playing time and some valuable catches as of right now. The transfer portal has been crazy, so who knows what's been happening since recording of this video. But these are going to be some of your main guys that I think Shedeur Sanders throws to, right? The Arkansas State tight end, and then these 3 receivers that we mentioned, and then, of course, Travis Hunter. I don't think offense is going to necessarily be a big concern for Colorado. I know a lot of people are talking about the defensive side of things, the defensive lineman that's needed, but we're a quarterback show, and so we're going to stick with anything related to the quarterback position. A few other guys, according to Buff Stampede, that are known targets for Coach Prime. You have Marcus Peterson, Cincinnati wide receiver / tight end, who could do a lot of really good things for them. He's a fairly high recruit. He's someone in the portal. And then you have a running back from Houston, right? Alton McCaskill, a 4th, did some really good things as a true freshman for the Cougars. Had 18 touchdowns as a true freshman. Had an injury last year, but he's in the portal now, I believe. And so he's someone that Colorado could be aiming to get. And there'll be more people added to this list. But I think the majority of transfer portal guys that Colorado is going to get is probably going to be from the defensive side, just because that's the main need for Colorado right now. Defensive line, just anything on defense. I think offense, like we said, is going to be good, especially with these transfer portal guys that they've got in. I think Sanders is going to have plenty of guys to throw to. With that said, let's real quick touch on the guys that have transferred, right? You got 4 quarterbacks. Owen McCown, JT Shrout, Maddox Cobb, and Drew Carter have transferred. So I think the backup position for Shedeur Sanders is up in the air right now. And of course, we had several receivers transfer. Jordan Tyson, who led the team in receiving yards last year, is in the portal. And then the big surprise right now, Montana Limitus Craig, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who had the big game in Colorado's spring game, did a lot of good things, and he transferred shortly after the game. And so he's someone who, you know, they would like to keep, I'm sure, but at the same time, they're bringing in some good receivers, some good ball players, and at the same time, it's not like they feel like they're losing someone they can't replace, even though both of Montana Craig and Jordan Tyson led the team in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns last year. They're pretty much the bright spot of the offense. So just wanted to mention that they are losing some quality players as well, but I think they're bringing in some good quality players. So with that said, Shedeur Sanders going to have plenty of guys to throw to. I think this is all part of the plan of Coach Prime. There's plenty of articles talking about the whole overhaul, but I wanted to at least touch on the guys that Sanders is going to be throwing to and how the offense is going to run. So if you like this video, if you watch the whole thing, we thank you sincerely. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have other quarterback content type videos throughout the rest of the week and next week as well. And we'll be keeping up with, you know, who Shedeur Sanders is going to throw to and any new target coming in. So if you like the video, please consider liking, subscribing, all that YouTube stuff. Let us know what type of video you want to see next, and we'll definitely see you next time on the next quarterback related video. Peace.